Hey everybody, it's Monday, April 11th, and as we kicked off a new trading session, we have to keep in mind this is a short week. We did do a couple trade alerts, which we're just going to jump into and go over the specific Ethereum and Chainlink alert that we issued today. So starting with Ethereum, you can clearly tell that it's had this nice breakdown, bear flag, which is exactly what we were looking for, and then a huge impulse move today that occurred over the course of the day. We covered our Ethereum and our Bitcoin shorts today, and we started to go long and accumulate a small position. This position that we're accumulating in Ethereum, Chainlink, and Bitcoin, it's not going to be a long position. It's just going to be a short-term swing trade as we expect a bounce. But you can clearly tell that this bear flag move has just completed today. It ran into perfect support zones. As you can see, the support zones that it ran into are pivot highs here. I can actually make this trend line a little more accurate. And that's how you know it closed on the high, the low of the day, pivot high, nice little impulse breakout, and that's where you found support. It also coincides with the 50-day moving average, so that will definitely be technical support in the short term. One of the reasons we add here is this is a beautiful retrace move, and the decline has happened quick and sharply. If this decline was more of a sideways to lower consolidation downwards rather than a straight shot down, we wouldn't have picked up here. But since this was a nice beautiful breakdown in your bear flag pattern and a straight shot into support zones, this is why we're picking up and starting to accumulate. Crypto, we only really trade the top 10 crypto coins out there. So we roughly have a 10% max allocation in each coin that we're prepared to go up to. So by starting with a 1.5 or 2% position is very small and relevant in how much we're prepared to take our crypto portfolio up to. That being said, it's rare that we do get up to the 10% level unless it's in Bitcoin or Ether. But that is the threshold limit that we try to keep it in. Notice how you still hit the top of this channel as resistance. I expect the bottom of this channel to be your resistance point. So definitely down here will be your next big add level. If we were to get down there right away, that would be a mega buying bounce opportunity. I don't think we get down there yet. What I'm looking for is a temporary bounce, but more of a bear flag pattern again to play out, just something like this magnitude. But one of the reasons why we also added to this technical level, if we scroll in the chart here, I just want to show you two trend lines. So one of the reasons why we knew to short Bitcoin was we had this first trend line here connecting to your, let me just get rid of this one, connecting to your two pivot tops here, which are your resistance points. And then if you look to where the price action was likely to go to, you simply connect this trend line, and it's a beautiful trend line. Oh, my apologies, that's not the correct one. I have to go to this trend line here. But notice how you have this trend line from this high pivot to this low pivot to your impulse move to the downside. You came back up as resistance, you tagged it there, fell back down, came all the way back up, tagged it and closed on this trend line twice, and then basically went back down, came back up to test it, couldn't break through it again, fell back down, came back up to test it, couldn't get through it, and then you finally broke through it all the way up here, and now you're coming back down to test it on a perfect technical retrace. So that's the beautiful thing about trend lines, is you had your long-term trend line here, which was showing a clear resistance level, and as to why price action had these two major wicks before breaking down in the bear flag pattern. And then you can see your secondary trend line here, which is your support trend line, and it acted as resistance and support on several different occasions throughout the last several months. So naturally this trend line will be a big area of support, and it coincides with multiple technical areas. So that's one of the beautiful reasons as to why we added on the charts. The power of TA is phenomenal. Now you can expect a little bit of support coming in and around down here, but the big level will be on the bottom of this trend line. We'll likely add, probably if it coincides with this impulse bar here, we'll probably likely add somewhere on those two technical points, and then also on the X marks the spot, this trend line here will be a big opportunity to potentially get a bounce. Ultimately, the big macro longer term pattern, we still have to keep in mind that, let me just remove all these drawings for a second. So ultimately we have to remember that this is a bearish pattern. You're inside this, basically this bear flag pattern here, and you have your channel that you're trading in. So that's no question bearish. You're just floating in this bear flag pattern. Eventually you're going to trigger and break to the downside, and when you do, it's going to be a substantial move down. Your big areas of support over the longer term pattern are going to be these major pivots here. I do think you clear those at some point. You'll have a big level here around the 1291 mark, and if you happen to head lower, that's going to be an amazing opportunity, potentially a trend line that I'm watching, and it just so happens to pique my interest, is this one right there. I think if you head somewhere in around this range here, this 555 mark, that would be one of the best buying opportunities in crypto history. So we'll just have to keep that in mind. That longer term trend line goes all the way back to the 2019 high here where I was showing you, and this 2020 high, and that'll be a big area of support at the same time. Let's jump over to Chainlink to show you why we added. So a small little bounce coming off of Chainlink. Again, for Chainlink, it was clear as day. We have this long-term downsloping trend line from the pivot high in 2021. It connects the pivot high here in January, and then it was where you originally broke out of, and now you've had this failed move down. And Chainlink has had a hard sell-off. You've actually broken the 50-day moving average, as opposed to Ethereum's relative strength on a daily basis. You're above the 50-day. So just noticing those nuances. In a weaker market, Chainlink is going to start trending lower, and in a stronger market, Chainlink is likely to get a bigger bounce. But that being said, clear technical area. You also have these support pivots from back here coming into play. Another support pivot here. Lots of chop and price action and closing in or amongst that trend line. And then it also happened to coincide with your previous impulse move breakout bar. Look where you came into. Pretty much exactly at the wick low of that bar. So again, one of the reasons why we added is because you had a hard 3-day sell, this nice bear flag consolidation, and then a nice hard dump to complete and trigger that bear flag short-term pattern. So we are in the camp that you get a short-term bounce. If you don't get a bounce, we'll be looking to add again on this trend line down here. And if you start breaking that, then we'll start to reassess at a later point, potentially looking to add somewhere in these 976 area or so on and so forth. But we'll monitor how it goes. Chainlink has had a good dump. Now, the reason why crypto is going to head lower and is likely to head much, much lower is because it is a risk-off asset. When you're playing crypto, putting Bitcoin aside, all the major other crypto plays are basically software. That's what you're betting on. So just like the 2000 bubble, when companies were going on this crazy boom in the .com, boom before it busted, you had the likes of Amazon, AOL, Yahoo, all these big tech companies. It was brand new to the space. A lot of them most of them don't exist anymore. And if you pick the winners that do exist, you've made hand over fist money for decades. But like the .com bubble, crypto is still so new. It still had so much hype. It still had so much monetary fiscal stimulus supporting it. And you're betting on software, which is a risk-off asset. It's more of a speculative investment because it's so new. But that being said, if you pick the right one for the long term, it could potentially be the greatest investment opportunity of this decade or more of this century. So we'll have to analyze it, but we love trading crypto because it is very technical. There's lots of key levels that people buy into, so it gives us a great advantage when we're constantly monitoring and analyzing the charts, waiting for pattern setup, waiting for clear signals, and multiple factors to basically get in a trade, whether it's long or short. We don't care. As long as the charts are telling us clearly and concisely that we have a high probable setup, we're going to take it. Now, that being said, keeping in mind the macro conditions that we're currently in obviously does weigh into some sort of the trades that we do take. But nonetheless, 90% technicals, I would say 10% fundamentals. And the rest of it, time. Just letting time go by and monitoring cycles and watching how these new asset classes and old asset classes move in tandem with previous cycles and correlations with the overall S&P and NASDAQ. So ultimately, tremendous more downside for all of the cryptos, but I do think that there's plenty of opportunity in the short term to start acquiring positions at these key technical levels, as we pointed out, and we'll just have to monitor the price action from here.